Hello, this is Alex Tess, and in this video we'll be going over the level design in Destiny 2. The cliff here denies the player affordance so that they can't jump off, and the player gets pinched to the left and will be able to see the opening to the cave. The dirt texture on the ground is leading lines and directs the player towards the opening of the cave, which is openings attract. The spikes on the ground in the cave, I believe, are an example of visual language shape and tell the player that there is a threat. Entering the cave, we see more leading lines with the dirt texture on the ground, as well as openings attract with the archways, as well as lighting. We also see visual language color on the spikes coming up from the ground, or ice spikes, affording cover to the enemy's end player. The player will continue to follow the texture slash leading lines on the ground, and also see another archway, which is openings attract. Followed by a slight pinch to the left, is followed by another openings attract. As the player moves down the texture, they will see another openings attract as they get through the archway. We also see leading lines with the color stalactites on the wall, pointing the player to the right after the ridge, as well as another openings attract. As the player enters the next room, they will see another example of visual language color and shape with the stalactite pieces of cover coming up from the ground. As we go through the level, we will see many examples of this, and the cover being pointy, indicating a threat to the player, as well as being a different color than the ground or the textured pathway to show that it affords cover. More leading lines here direct the player to the left, where they will see another openings attract, and they will continue to follow the textured gravel on the ground or dirt to the next opening. None of these enemies here provide a gate because they can all be skipped or ran past. The player will then see a cliff on the left, denying the player affordance to go that way, and more leading lines directing the player to the right. The player will follow the leading lines until they see the next archway, which is openings attract. The player will continue to follow the leading lines to the left in the cave. Pinching is used here to get the player to look to the left and see the leading lines that lead up to the right to the final openings attract archway, so the player can exit the cave. The large pyramid in the sky is Rasputin, which is a landmark that the player is eventually going to arrive at, as well as a boss that the player is going to fight. Both, I believe, are landmarks because they tell the player that they will eventually arrive at these two destinations. The player will see more leading lines, as well as visual language color, indicating that the rocky formations are indeed cover. The player will then see more leading lines with these crates as they follow the texture on the ground up the hill to the next encounter. The player will follow the leading lines up to the left onto the bridge, where they will find the first and only gate of this level, which is a boss, Ogre. The crates that the player finds atop the bridge provides more leading lines. They also are an example of visual language shape, being rectangle, that they are indeed stable and provide cover, as well as point out the direction of the door, which is in the top right of the frame. They also use visual language shape with the more rounder shaped rocks to direct the player to the door as well, kind of like a bumper cushioning the player in that direction. There's also leading lines on the two walls, where the walls go from blue to white. There's a physical line pointing to the door from both of these walls. Here we also see that the door is a gate and will open after we kill the ogre boss that just spawned. In this fight, you'll see here that I do a lot of retreating behind the crates of cover. They did a good job using the visual language shape once again, so that I can feel stable behind those pieces of cover when I need to retreat. Also, if we take a look at the tree near where I'm fighting the enemies, it's a good indication of visual language shape. The tree is very pointy and resembles that there is something threatening around. Next up, after I kill some enemies, you'll see a metal grate on the ground, which is sort of like a breadcrumb leading the player to the door if they go too far to the other direction. Now that the ogre is dead, I will move my player to the door, which is about to be opened, and finish the mission, which will start the next mission, and will complete the gate that we were just fighting to finish. Once again, this is Alex Tess, and I'd like to thank you for watching this overview of the level design in Destiny 2 for the Warmind campaign. Thanks again.